Dave, thank you for taking time to join us on the Spotlight sessions. You're heading to AERO Friedrichshafen very shortly. Tell me, what are you most looking forward to about the show?
Well, firstly, thank you for having me on. Really excited to be here and really looking forward to heading over to the show. Obviously, AERO Friedrichshafen now is become a really important part of the European calendar. Anywhere where you get all of the OEMs, the MROs, the aircraft operators, the owners of aircraft, all gathering in one spot, all showcasing their latest innovations, the new things they're bringing to the market. It's a really exciting place to be. So really excited to be over there and, standing and sharing what we're doing as Gogo in that space as well. And hopefully coming away with some really interesting conversations and really interesting insights as to what's coming in the market.
Yeah, I've got a really good feeling about it because so many people are heading there. And I know for Europeans, one of the things at the moment that will be top of mind, because it's literally just come into force, is this new Part IS regulation. Now, we don't have time to go into this in depth and technically, but I do know if anyone can give me a good snapshot overview of what it means and what operators need to be looking at, you're the man. So could you walk me through that a little bit?
Yeah, no, sure. I mean, first of all, the Part IS mandate is a massive shift for the aviation industry and particularly European aviation. For the first time, really, cybersecurity is being embedded into the airworthiness regulations under EASA. And so what that means really is that connectivity is no longer just a tool on board the aircraft. It's an integral part of the digital infrastructure of the aircraft. And so that means that it needs to be treated as such. I guess as a real high level, operators need to understand that, any connected system, whether that's SATCOM or air to ground or the routers on board or the onboard networks, they all fall into that scope. And I guess a big change is now that the operators themselves are now responsible for, managing the cyber risk, for managing the vulnerabilities on board the aircraft and making sure that they stay compliant. And if they don't stay compliant under these mandates, there are potentially going to be, penalties that could be incurred. So I guess practically what it means is making sure that the operators are comfortable that they're partnering with providers that understand what that means and how they can support them through that. So that could be things like demonstrating their system architecture, demonstrating that they have documentation in place for cybersecurity mandates and processes. All of these things that we do as an organization to try and, make sure that our systems are built from the ground up with security in mind need to be made transparent and available to the operators to make sure that they can keep compliant.
It's so important, and I'm very grateful to Gogo because knowing we were having this conversation, I just listened to the really helpful webinar that you ran, and it walks people through at a very kind of instant information level of the compliance and what's needed. So I do recommend people go and check that out as well. And as I say, we don't have time on this particular conversation to go right into what everything means. But could you tell me a little bit about what Gogo is going to be showcasing at AERO Friedrichshafen? Because that all sounds very exciting too.
Yeah, well, I mean, it's exciting times in the industry. There is so much going on, and we're really proud to be at the forefront, particularly with all of the changes that are going on in the landscape around connectivity. So we'll be talking about, obviously, our whole ecosystem, but predominantly around Galileo and what that means, Galileo being our LEO service offering. And I mean, the market and the landscape around connectivity has been changing rapidly over the last, I would say, 3 or 4 years. New entrants into the space, existing providers of network providers enhancing their offering. And we're really at that stage where a lot of customers are really trying to understand what is the best next step for them with their aircraft, their connectivity requirements, and what, if they're going to invest now, is that going to be a protected investment into the future? So Galileo really sits nicely with that because, you know, LEO is one of the buzz topics at the moment in terms of connectivity. Ultra fast, low latency, you know, high capacity connectivity on board aircraft. And we really want to make sure that, you know, the proposition that we're putting forward, which is built for business aviation, which is built to integrate with all of the systems on board and provide the best experience possible, is part of that conversation, and that customers are fully informed about the benefits of that. We also, as part of our proposition, have geo solutions, so more legacy solutions that have been on the market. And those solutions aren't going anywhere, right? There's still heavy investment in those from a network standpoint. We're continuing to invest in the antenna technology that sits behind that. And so we're really trying to demystify the solutions from a customer standpoint, to take the conversation away from the technology as a whole, and start to understand and bring to bear, okay, what do you need as an aircraft operator? What are you looking for? What is your mission? And then the conversations that we hope to be having at the show is really about understanding, okay, in the future, upgrade opportunities, first time interconnectivity, where is the best place for you to put your trust and your money? And hopefully, you know, with what we're able to show in terms of what we're offering, Gogo will be a key part of that conversation moving forward.
I think so. And I think this show in particular will attract a lot of the lighter end of the business aviation market. And I know, could you just walk me through how you cater for that end? Because that's very exciting that it's starting to be much more accessible for all kinds of sizes of aircraft now.
Yeah, I mean, that is part of the changing landscape in terms of availability of solutions. And what was really the playground of the large jets, the long range jets, now we really have some really quite exciting, impressive solutions which are fit for purpose on a turboprop, as well as a, you know, like a small jet, maybe a Phenom 300, where you can start to have that office on the ground, that high level broadband like connectivity in those aircraft. And up until very recently, you know, that just hasn't been an option in a lot of these aircraft, particularly depending on where they're flying and the networks available to them. It just hasn't been available either from a, you know, a restrictions in the size of the actual hardware that goes on board the aircraft, or the cost, the ongoing cost ownership of the services that go on the aircraft. We're now reaching a point where those smaller aircraft are now part of the conversation. And so for those guys, it's really important that, you know, they can see that they're now a catered for part of the business aviation community in terms of connectivity, and expectations around those aircraft, you know, are the same as anybody else. You know, you're flying in a private jet. There's an expectation that you can have connectivity as you would on the ground, that's both capable, that's secure, that is well supported. And yeah, I mean, at the moment, you know, there are a number of STCs that we have available on lighter airframes, and we'll be looking forward to having conversations with the community down at AERO Friedrichshafen to make sure that they're aware of everything that we have going on.
What I've observed at AERO Friedrichshafen is it does bring a huge variety of people from the industry, but it's a very serious show as well. It's fun. It's a long time show that is growing in popularity. What would you like to take away as Gogo from your attendance this year at the show? What do you hope to come back with?
I think one of the main takeaways that we'd like to have from the show is, you know, having engaged with and imparted with a lot of what we just talked about. You know, that there is a whole new segment of the market which is now capable of taking this level of connectivity with LEO solutions on board their aircraft. And so we want to make sure that that market is really addressed. we're not trying to neglect any other segment of our customer base. They're still absolutely part of the conversation, and we are really making massive strides in continuing to enhance the experience for all of our customers. But I think as a new segment, that's really interesting and exciting for us in terms of growth. We also are looking at ways in which we can make sure that everybody's aware around our multi-orbit strategy. So multi-orbit really wasn't part of the conversation until, at least a few years ago, just because the way in which the market has developed over the last few years means that customers now are looking at, if they're a large aircraft owner operator, they will invariably have some kind of solution on board their aircraft today. But what they might be looking at now is, okay, to enhance my existing solution, I might add a LEO solution on there to gain access to ultra high speed connectivity on the aircraft and low latency, but not at the expense of taking the existing systems that they have away. So they're looking at the considerations around reliability and redundancy that the multi-orbit system can offer, or solutions can offer. Likewise, on the smaller aircraft, if you're flying, maybe you're have an aircraft equipped for SATCOM for when you're outside of the US, but you have an aircraft that has air-to-ground capability when you're in the US. There are multiple use cases where the multi-orbit solution really does stand on its own. And so, yeah, again, part of that conversation at the show will be to help educate and to help customers understand, the full remit of the solutions that are available to them through Gogo.
Exciting times indeed. And I know you're on your travels too at the moment, Dave. So thank you very much for taking time out to speak with us and to share with us a little bit about what you can find at the Gogo booth and with the Gogo team at AERO Friedrichshafen, and indeed some information on Part IS. Thank you so much.
Thank you.